Hello, chess fans. Welcome to another edition of The Stories Behind the Games. I'm your humble chess reporter, Craig Marr, and today's featured game is Marr versus Jeremy Silman. Now, many of you old-timers remember me when I was a serious player in the 1970s and the 1980s. And then I mysteriously disappeared from active play from 1990 to 1995. Well, I was going to law school and passing the bar during that 5-year period. But after I passed the bar in 1996, well, I'm back playing chess again. Now, my rating at that time was 2471, which qualified me to play in the Northern California Chess Championship. Jeremy Silman at that time was rated 2490. And he was a noted author of many fine books, particularly Reassess Your Chess. But by this time, I realized I would never be the world champion. And I decided that making money was more important than being a 2600 level player, because at that time you really couldn't make much of a living from playing in chess tournaments. And although many of the masters at this time were supplementing their incomes by teaching and writing books and things like that. Jeremy Silman was an international master, and he had acquired this title many years before this game was played. At this time, I was an FM, which is called a FIDE master. I had acquired that title by playing a certain required number of games and maintaining a 2300 FIDE rating. And you're probably wondering, well, how come I didn't go get the International Master title when I was good enough to do so? Well, when you're in California, you're kind of stuck there. It's kind of like a you're barricaded in, sort of, because there are just not a lot of qualifying tournaments for the title. Whereas if you live in New York or Europe, you have a much better chance of acquiring that title because they require that you play in an International Master Norm tournament, which is, I think, minimum 9 rounds. Now, this game is from a round-robin tournament, which means that if you have like 6 players, then everybody plays the other players once. And so you get to prepare for each opponent in a tournament such as this. So, you know, I had done my observations of Jeremy, and I realized that he was a solid positional player. You know, sometimes when you're, a serious tournament player, you have to study your opponents and try to get them into positions where, they don't feel all that comfortable. Now, I was determined to win this game. And so Jeremy, is a very solid player, but my style is a little sharper in that maybe I'm more prone to sacrifice or take risks. Anyway, I had the white pieces in this encounter. Let's get to it. So I opened up here with d4. And then Jeremy responded with a move that's a little bit offbeat. Normal is something like knight coming to f6 is the usual response. But he played d6. And this is a very common strategy and a good one to try to get me out of the book early. I played c4, plays e5. Now we're going to pause for just 1 second, and I want you, the viewer, to decide what would you do here. Here I played knight f3, and I could have traded queens here with D takes E, but then this is not the type of game you want against Jeremy Silman. He's kind of a solid positional player, and I don't really think that the queen exchange leads to very much for white, really. So this is probably the best move. Now e4 by Jeremy Silman is an excellent move. It attacks the knight, and now I have a lot of choices. So I'm going to pause here, and you have to decide, where's your knight going? Here I selected knight d2, which is probably not the best. I kind of now prefer knight g5, which is more aggressive. And the idea is that the knight will eventually reroute from h3 and then back to f4 and get back into the game. But the move that I played, I think, is probably unnecessarily defensive. f5 is good. Jeremy thought quite a while about e3, which is very disruptive, and it's playable, But now I wanted to stop that possibility, so I play e3. Knight f6 is excellent, continuing development. Knight c3. Now these moves so far are fairly easy to play. Just bring your pieces out. Now this is excellent by Jeremy. It solidifies the pawn structure, develops the bishop. Bishop e2, bishop g7, h3. Now I thought maybe I was bluffing g4, but guess what? Jeremy is not fooled at all by that the threat of G4. So now I decided, well, kingside is a little bit risky to castle, but it might be safer for me to castle on the queen side here. So queen c2. Whoops. Sorry about that. C5 is good. D5. If I take, I just have a bad game, you know. So D5 is correct, gaining space. Now he's got a nice square for the knight. And I have to develop this piece. So B3. E5. Now, the more I look at the position, I kind of prefer black, because he stopped the G4 threat, and my only play is eventually going to be F4. Queen E7 is excellent, solidifying the position and preparing to develop the queen's bishop. Now, whenever you castle on the opposite side, it creates a more tactical and double-edged game. Now, I was in a very combative mood in this game, and this move reflects that. Bishop d7 is good. Now, at some point, he should, be looking at a6 and b5, and it's very hard for me to prevent that. If I play a4, I'm kind of weakening my queen side a lot, though. Now, the idea behind this move is to eventually get f4 in and target the queen. So my idea is that if he retreats the knight, I could consider a move like g4, and then getting some active play going on his king. But he played pawn captures en passant, and then I captured back this way. So now we have kind of a wide open game here, where maybe I'm trying to get f4 in. Knight f7 is uncovering good pressure here. This forces me to come out here. And now we come to the first critical moment of the game. I'm going to pause here. What would you do? Okay. This is what I played here. I took. Now, you might be thinking, well, it looks bad. He's going to grab the rook, and then my pawn structure's all smashed up. That is true. But I hope you guys didn't fall for e4, and then that just leads to a bad game. So I really felt that this was my best chance here to beat Silman. Takes. I recapture. He takes. And now this move is forced. Now we have a very interesting position with queen versus two rooks. And now the game gets super sharp at this point. Bishop captures knight. Bishop captures knight. Knight e4. d4. Now we have a very interesting game. Why did I make this exchange? Isn't the bishop better than the knight? Why did I give up the two bishops? Well, the reason that I did this is I wanted to isolate the rook here. This rook and all these pieces are somewhat trapped, actually. In fact, that was my idea, was to go after the rook with queen h2,